Have you ever wanted to play Sonic Unleashed on anything but this? Or 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 this?
I just completely mistook you for someone else.
I wonder how long before Sega castrates me for this. So the insane people within the Sonic the Hedgehog community have done what Sega has refused to do for years now. But a mediocre Sonic game on PC! Okay, but none of these turn Sonic into a furry. Sonic Unleashed was the first Sonic game in what is now known as the boost formula of games. If you don't know what that means, you basically press this button and oh my god! This game has had a bit of a rocky reputation since its release. Some like it as a whole, some like only half of it, that being the stages you aren't a massive furry, and some haven't gotten past the first Werehog stage.
Can you tell which one I am? Just because it's accurate doesn't mean it's not mean. But Sonic Unleashed is also the first and last Sonic game to look pretty. Not pretty good, not pretty great, no, just straight up pretty.
It's kind of wild that they made a game look this good on hardware from 2008. Keep in mind, they were still selling flip phones as a viable phone option back then. Sega developed something called the Hedgehog engine. It was a way to push hardware to its limits to give us breathtaking visuals with some of the most realistic lighting I've ever seen in a game. This was before games could utilize ray tracing, where light in-game would bounce off surfaces with accurate color and reflections. And even in the modern age, we still struggle with it because ray tracing takes so much power and hardware the best equipment can barely run these types of games at playable frame rates. However, Sega managed to find a way to get this look on what could be considered a shitty Windows Vista computer. Daytime is so bright and vibrant, and nighttime is dark, lit by various cozy lamps. It's something that looking back on blows you away, as Sonic games haven't looked this good since.
I'd argue that gaming in general hasn't reached this kind of fidelity, because while modern gaming technically should look better, a lot of the times you're still seeing imperfections like low-res textures or a low-poly model.
But of course, beauty comes at a price. This game is notorious for running like shit. You'd be lucky to get through one stage without lag. The Xbox 360 simply couldn't handle a lot of levels being rendered at that kind of fidelity. The PS3 was even worse. It's still impressive because the game more or less is still playable enough. There are times where it is smooth, and when you play this game on an Xbox Series X, you actually get improved frame rates with 0 frame drops. That console took older games and made them run better than Grandma when there was a sale for Raisin Bread. She still refuses to acknowledge the children she hurt. I'm not sure how exactly this is done, but Xbox really knows how to treat legacy content. For the longest time, this was the best way to play Sonic Unleashed, and if we're getting technical, it's the best way to legally play Sonic Unleashed.
Am I holding contraband? I don't know. What do you think, dog? Okay, that's enough of that. We're starting to enter this new era of community modding, which is making a game that couldn't run on anything basically run on everything.
Now, if you're a feeble-minded freak, you might be asking, how is this different from emulation? And to that I say, I'm sorry I called you feeble-minded. You're actually only just a freak. Emulation tries to emulate the console hardware to run an official ROM of the game. Emulating that console means also emulating its limitations, no matter how many patches you try to install. What Sonic Unleashed PC is doing is using a decompiled version of the game that is rebuilt and rewrote to run natively on whatever device you build it for, and in this case, that's PC. How do they even do this?
I have no idea. My best guess is that they do something like this. It's probably accurate. But no matter how it was done, it doesn't take away the sheer insanity that this port actually is.
Because from a distance, this game can be seen as just being Sonic Unleashed, but when you play around with what it has to offer, holy f***ing shit. The game can run in higher resolutions. Even on the Series X, the game ran in 720p, which is technically HD, but like when you scale that up on a 4K monitor, it feels like I'm overdue for an eye exam. Now, while the textures aren't upscaled, none of that is important because you run at the speed of light in this game. Modern Sonic games are incomparable at the sheer awe of what this game looks like. And yes, I'm looking at you, you ugly troglodyte. But like I mentioned earlier, all these graphics can make the game run like poopy garbage on an Xbox 360. And while the Xbox Series X makes it run at a smooth 60 frames, the PC port can go even further beyond. I've never watched Dragon Ball. 120, 144, 165, and man, does it look and feel buttery smooth. The daytime stages feel eccentric and gives you this sense of speed like never before. On the first few stages, my muscle memory was completely failing me due to just how fast Sonic was going, and it made me realize why later games restricted your control. This higher frame rate does indeed make a difference. I, however, still think that this game is the best of the boost formula because that amount of control means you can make mistakes, work towards being a better player, and complete levels faster like how Sonic was always meant to be. You can really feel what it's like to be Sonic, and it just, it feels right. However, you can also feel how fucking awful the Werehog is.
I know that's gonna piss off the Werehog fans.
Yeah!
However, for a character focused in speed, slowing down becomes the equivalent of pulling teeth.
Very unpleasant. On original hardware, the Werehog oddly didn't feel too bad because the limited frame rate didn't make these slower parts feel that slow, kind of like how higher refresh rates can make the daytime stages feel faster. However, play it on PC and it just feels like your most generic hack and slash platformer. Thankfully, it's not all that bad since the developers of this enabled a feature to turn off the f***ing battle music! No, not like that. What? The game has these amazing jazz renditions for the nighttime stages, but you can't even hear them half the time because of the, my god, turn it off! You have to fight a lot of enemies during the night, and it would be fine if it didn't play the same goddamn song every time you encountered an enemy! Thankfully, on the PC port, instead of playing that crazy jazz arrangement for every single enemy encounter, you instead just keep the stage theme, which is such a f***ing better experience. I'm actually surprised this wasn't how the game originally was. I've never truly heard most of these tracks due to their constant interruption by the overabundance of this song in each stage. Oh, I can't. Stop. I don't think you understand how much this song has plagued my life. For every enemy I saw, date I've been on, door I've opened. Wait for it. This song would just consume my every being, so being able to turn it off has basically saved my life.
Saving my life or not, it doesn't change the fact that legality starts to get questioned with this kind of port. I know I can seem like a buzzkill when I say this, but as it's becoming far more prevalent in the gaming atmosphere, it's a conversation that I feel needs to be opened.
I questioned this with the Mario 64 PC port a couple years back. However, that port utilized reverse-engineered code. The game in its entirety was built from the ground up, and the only questionable thing about it was using the copyrighted work of Nintendo. Once you swapped all the assets out, it was no longer a question of legality and more of a question of ethics, and that's more up to your subjectivity. I personally think it's the tits meaning the bird, because birds are cool. This Sonic Unleashed port, and by extension the Xbox 360 decompilation project, is not that. This doesn't mean that it didn't take months or even years of work to get done. The fact that it runs this well as it does is such a programming feat. The problem lies is that it utilizes the original code of Sonic Unleashed, just translated into a new coding language. That's like if I painted over the Mona Lisa with the Mona Lisa. I still use the Mona Lisa as a base, and I probably devalued the f*** out of it.
Now, the use of that code can fall under copyright infringement. The only thing that can protect you from that are fair use laws, but if you've been on the internet, you know how much of a confusing mess that is. Because fair use only works if the copyrighted work is used in a transformative way, which could theoretically come down to difference of opinion.
If Sega decides that this does infringe their copyright, then the developer can argue that this project and the recompiling of their game as a whole is transformative. It could honestly be transformative. However, I'm not entirely sure how you could prove that since you are basically running the original game on a whole other console, and whether or not that is allowed is up to the game's EULA, or End User License Agreement. EULAs are used to make sure that you as the consumer doesn't do anything the game company developing it doesn't agree with. So if decompiling and recompiling is something they don't want to happen, then you're better off taking your game disc and dunking it in milk, which probably also is against the End User License Agreement. Damn it!
Luckily, Sega has all their EULAs published on their website for us to read. All we have to do is find the Sonic Unleashed one, and it doesn't exist. Huh. Well, that complicates things.
So, technically, there's nothing saying you can't do this, but it's still using Sega's copyrighted material. The game does function differently from the original due to the additions and added options, so I guess it could be transformative. In fact, while the original code was translated, it wasn't even edited. Instead, the developers made mods for it in order to have run it. So I guess it means it's more of a mod rather than a full-on port. But probably the most damning thing of all is that this decompilation and recompilation is not for profit. It is for personal use. You may say, Tom, that's obvious, but you gotta think about this. The game came out before EULAs were far more prevalent, meaning that if you own this game, you own it, not the license to run it. No. You own it and the ROM, meaning I can dunk it in milk, yes! So this means if someone makes a program that simplifies the process of decompiling and recompiling and never provides the ROMs to do so, well then, there's nothing Sega can really do. So this is, in all technicality, legal, since the actual PC port itself is not being distributed. Just a program that simplifies a very complicated process that is in fact not illegal.
Oh, well, that was easy. I guess there was no bigger discussion needed or deep dive into anything crazy, since all of this is pretty much above board. Oh, well that's... Okay, so there is one problem.
Some people don't like playing by the rules, and listen, I get it. When it says take one from the candy bowl on Halloween, I get a little devious and steal the person's doorknob, but that's a victimless crime. I understand providing more convenience for people, but if you're gonna do it, don't do it on such a public platform! I am already on enough list as it is. I don't need to end up on a company's radar due to piracy. It can give people the game who don't own it. Yeah, I know the game is old and it shouldn't matter, but that's not how the law sees it. And when you go against the law, it gives these companies reasons to remove it. It's the main reason why emulation is still in this legal gray area, because the argument can be made that free publicly available emulators encourage piracy and was the sole reason why ROM hosting sites were made. You need a ROM to recompile this game, which is super complicated because there's no physical device besides a modded Xbox 360 that can dump the ROM. You know how easy it is to mod an Xbox 360? It's as easy as trying to tightrope with a 40-pound weight in one hand. Ooh. I probably should have laid down a net. You gotta do some dumb boot loop shit with some wires and a resistor, and a lot of people don't have the mental solitude to do this safely. I'm one of those people.
And look, I know the original creators of this decompilation project are not intending for this to happen. They actually encourage you to do it the legal way. However, that doesn't stop bad actors from trying to go against the system due to what they think is right. I agree that this should not be a big deal, but I also see that distributing these full games like that can give the company the argument to not only take down that copy of the game, but the whole act of recompiling and decompiling, because now there is proof that it can lead to piracy, which is illegal no matter how old the console is. I'm sorry for getting so passionate about it. While I do talk about a hypothetical, we've seen this happen before with emulation, and it's so easy not to let history repeat itself. Isn't that right, dog? That's enough of that.